Meeting to order. If you will, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson? Mr. Payne?
Here.
Ms. Reese? Here. Mr. Carlton?
Here.
Mr. Peak?
Here. And we're going to stand and have a moment of silence, and then we're going to ask Ms. Warren to lead us in the pledge for her birthday. Ms. Warren?
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We don't have any requests for audience or delegations. The next item is presentation of the 2020-2021 test data. We're going to turn that over to Dr. Long and Angie Wills.
And I do want to just brag on our teachers before they start. You know, last year was a very hard year for every school system in the state. But when you see our scores, of course, they're not where we want them to be. But our teachers worked so hard, and so did our kids. And one of the highlights that we would like to share is the fact that the majority of our scores are higher than what they were across the state. So we outscored the state in a lot of areas. So we just want to share this information and, you know, definitely have room to grow, but definitely proud of what our teachers and our students did.
Thank you.
Some color issues that part of it's black and white, part of it's in color. I don't know how that happened at all.
Okay, I'll go ahead and begin with our 2nd through 6th grade data. Our 2nd grade data, we ought to take the 2nd grade assessment. We just feel like that gives us a good baseline for how we're doing in K2. And so we have done that for the past several years, but this year it was kind of a kick in the stomach a little bit when we got our data back. It was not for the lack of teachers. They worked so super hard and they poured everything they had, but we were really doing quite well and really surpassing the state in 2019 quite a bit. We were at 36.1. In this past year, we were at a 23. The state was at a 21, so like Dr. Simcox said, we were still surpassed the state, but we just didn't have quite that gap that we have been able to gain before. But we're going to keep working hard. We're doing a lot of really good things in K2 to strengthen our early literacy. There's some really encouraging data I'll get to in just a minute that shows that. But we're just going to continue to work hard, and we definitely feel like that we can get back to where we were and beyond. In math, it was the same situation, only it was a much larger gap. They did not report state data for 2nd grade math, but in 2019 we were at a 50.3. In this past year we were at a 27. But across the state there was a huge loss in math, and that's just where it is. You know, we don't like it, but that's been consistent everywhere. In 3rd grade ELA, we were at a 39%, and that is really, we had quite a jump on the state. They were at 32%. And the one thing I want to highlight is today we got some data back, and we were able to rank the districts in order, from the top, to the lowest performing out of 150 districts. And we were 36th. And so we are definitely in that top 1/3. We want to be closer to the top, of course, and we definitely, would love to be at 50% at least on track and mastered. But we definitely are seeing some positive things, and we just have to keep moving forward.
Is that because we were in school and a lot of them were
Yes.
not in school?
There is a document Dr. Long could share with you, or I could, but it is a comparison, and it breaks down statewide data for in-person and then hybrid, and then those that are virtual. We also have that data broken down just for our district, comparing in-person and virtual. But when you look at it across the state, it's a substantial difference for those students that were in person and those that were not.
And are these scores a combination of where we had at the start, we had 400 and something in virtual,
Yes.
and then
This
half of
includes
those were
everybody.
failing, and we made them come back, so did all those scores go together?
Yeah, this includes everybody.
Yes, and our participation rate on the test, if you see our district data, our participation rate just here in Johnson County in our physical borders was probably well over 95%. This year, that's the requirement normally, but this year we were only required to do 80. If you see that, our statewide participation rate, it's reported at 91%, but that's part of that's the TNCAJ, the Tennessee Connections Academy. They were a little lower than us within our physical borders. One other thing I wanted to say before you move on real quick, you see MC, where in Johnson County, you might think that stands for Mountain City. On your chart, that's Mastery Connect, that's our benchmark program. And so this is what we were projected to score, and we put that on there more for our teachers and our schools so they could compare what they were projected to score versus what they actually scored. So I just wanted you to know what that was.
And we wanted to make sure that our Mastery Connect scores were lower than what the actual state assessment data is, just because that gives us a really good indication of where we will be on the actual assessment. And in 3 through 6, there was only 2 areas, I believe there was 2 areas that the Mastery Connect data was actually higher than the state data. But overall, I mean, it was, the Mastery Connect seems to be a much harder assessment.
And part of the explanation for that is when we gave that third benchmark in March, the participation rates for that weren't necessarily as high as the participation rates were on the TCAT. So that data could be skewed a little bit by who took the test, who did.
Okay, for third grade math, the district was at 36% and the state was at 32%. And in science, the district was at 42% overall. The state did not report science data in 3.6, or 3.8, I guess.
Science or social studies.
So, in fourth grade, the district was at 42% and the state average was at 33%. And again, we've really been working hard with our ELA and our literacy professional development in our district. And we were 37th in the state in fourth grade language arts as well. So again, in that top 1/3. In fourth grade math, we were at 47, our students scored 47% on track and master, and the state was 34. So much higher than the state. In science, we were at 60% district-wide. So in fifth grade ELA, we had, our percentage was 32% and the state was 29. And in fifth grade math, we were actually below the state by 1 percentage. We were at 30% and the state was at 31. In science for fifth grade, they did report, no they didn't. The state, or the district was at 40%. So we were, our fifth grade science scores were not quite as high as our fourth grade, but we're working on that. Sixth grade ELA, as a district, we were at 24%, and the state was at 29%. And so that is an area of concern. We have been working with those teachers. We're going to be doing some individual, planning with sixth grade ELA teachers and try to figure out what's going on there, because that typically doesn't happen in that area, but it did.
Did you not have any sixth grade at Laurel?
That was just a class that has a lot of struggling students, and so there was not any students that were on track and mastered. And you'll see the same for math. At the district level in math, we were at 29% and the state was at 27%, so again, we did do better in that area. And in district-wide for science, we were at 25%, and in social studies, we were at 30%, and they did not report state data for either of those.
Questions for Ms. Wells?
Kind of all over the board, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a real consistency even among the schools. I mean, like having
It-
high and low and different grades and?
It does depend a lot upon, for example, that sixth grade group at Laurel, there is a high percentage of special ed students. And so, I know last year in fifth grade at Rome Creek, again, a high number of special ed students in that group. So it really does just kind of depend on the group of kids. We kind of know that and know who those kids are, but unfortunately, you know, you all may not know that as much as we do, just from working with those teachers all the time.
But there's a lot of learning loss from the year before too,
There
isn't there,
is.
from where we stopped in March?
Yes, there is. So we just have to keep working, offering tutoring opportunities before and after school, throughout the day, making sure that they're getting the right interventions, and just continuing to work to make up for that learning loss.
Middle school, English language arts. These charts are a little bit smaller on the screen. But you could see that we had a total of, in seventh grade, 35.4% on track and mastered, so that would be considered overall proficient. The state had 26%. That seventh grade ELA ranked 26th in the state. So like Ms. Wills said, not where we want to be, but proud of where we are at the same time. And again, I want to reiterate what Dr. Simcox said, what she said. Our teachers worked exceptionally hard, and they continue to do that.
Go back to that chart, because you moved a little fast, and the chart's got several different columns. It's got below, approaching, on track, mastered, total.
It's still there. It's still there.
No, I mean, you moved a little fast.
Oh, I'm
When
sorry.
you were explaining, when you were
I
explaining
apologize.
it.
Well, Ms. Wills compiled the elementary data, and I just sort of pasted the charts into the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And she had all those columns in hers. The previous ones just had on track and mastered. And so I'll go back to like the sixth grade social studies. So now I'll go back to the seventh grade. That's just showing the percent that are below, the percent that are approaching, and then on track and mastered is considered passing, if you will. So we total those two columns. So you'll see this column right here, 35.4. This column that says N, that's how many students took the test. And then again, that Mastery Connect prediction out on the end. So what we're really keying on right here is this 35.4 compared to this 26.
But you've got, if you look through the below and approaching, which means you're not on track, that's pretty high numbers, again. for
It is.
our
And
students.
those, that you would see similar numbers in these other charts. We just didn't include that in those charts.
I have that. I'll be glad to send that to you.
Yeah, the approaching category, you can look at it two ways. I prefer to look at it as a gold mine. The approaching category is an absolute gold mine. We have 50% of the students that are on the cusp of being a category up. So that's where we've got to, where our workload's going to be focused. In eighth grade ELA, we were 26.1, again, ahead of the state. The seventh grade numbers tended to outpace the eighth grade numbers this past year for various reasons. But the eighth grade ELA did rank 55th in the state. Middle school math, seventh grade, of course you can see the below approaching on track and mastered. The total of on track and mastered was 31.3 compared to the state's 24. If you look again at that approaching category, we're dead even with the state at 42%. Again, a vast opportunity there to do some real good work. Eighth grade math, a little below the state, 22.4 compared to 24. So that's going to be a focus for us this year. Middle school science. Stay current with my charts here. Middle school science ranked 97th in the state. We don't have the state totals, they didn't provide those, but we were at 28.6% proficient compared to, and then 29.1% in the eighth grade. And then middle school social studies. Seventh grade social studies was at 57.5%. You'll notice that's higher than a lot of our other numbers. Really want to brag on that. That's 10th in the state.
Huge accomplishment.
10th in the state, and I appreciate all the work that they do up there. And then the 8th grade was at 37.8, which was 89th in the state. So still almost in the top half there. Moving to the high school, so these charts are a little more involved. So you'll see this top one is from the fall, because we administer tests twice at the high school, in the fall and in the spring. So this is your fall data, this is your spring data, and this is the state overall data. So English 1, 22.4%, English 2, 29.4%, that was in the fall. And then English 1 in the spring really took a hard hit, 12%. And the English 2 was exactly the same at 29.4. We were, overall, our first semester numbers looked better against the state, but it was 30 and 37% respectively in English 1 and English 2. So working on that. We do have a teacher, one of our very strongest teachers, retired last year, but came back to work for us part-time this year as a high school ELA coach. So we're putting in work up there and trying to improve those numbers. Same thing, same format for math, except you've got 3 tested subjects in math. We call that AGA, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So in the fall, Algebra 1's year-long at the high school. We do have a single class that takes it into one semester format, and we had 0% in the fall. But the vast majority of our students, 138 of them, took it in the spring. We were at 13.8%, which is a pretty significantly lower than what we're accustomed to. But you'll see the state was at 11, so it was a statewide hit. Our geometry, 23.5 in the fall, 17.8 in the spring, 22% overall for the year, so we're sort of on par with that. The 23.5% in the fall, is inflated a little bit because you can see only 34 students took it. So that was an honors class. So they were above the state. So we've got to continue to improve there. And then Algebra 2 is a huge focus for us. You can see those numbers need a lot of improvement. And so what we're doing to that end is we, as of this year, have doubled our Algebra 2 department, so to speak, from a department of 1 to a department of 2. Mm-hmm. And that is now a year-long course. We've been told for years by various teachers we've had in that slot, we can't get this done in a year and do it right, especially, or in a semester rather, especially in the spring when it snows. And testing tends to start, this year it wasn't the case, but testing often tends to start a month before school's out. So they're saying, not only did it snow all this much, but I didn't even get to utilize the last 3 or 4 weeks of teaching. So we've made that a year-long course, and we're going to see what happens. We also expect to see some ACT impact from that, because those are juniors, and juniors take the ACT. So hopefully that'll be have a ripple effect, positive. Now the state that didn't report individual science in 3.8, and they really didn't report it for high school either, except in a roundabout way they do. There's only one tested science subject in high school, so when they give you the state science data, it's the biology data. So in the fall we had 11.3% with 71 kids. Huge jump in the spring with roughly the same number of kids, 44.3%. And the state average was 41. So our spring numbers look good. Don't really know about the fall. It could have been the 2-week delay and then all the virtual, that most certainly had some impact. Hard to measure how much. U.S. history, also roughly even numbers, split evenly between the semesters, 17.9% in the fall. We see the same pattern. It's not as pronounced of a jump, but a big jump in the spring. And we're still a little behind the state there. So we're working on that. We've had some looked at our master schedule and what we can do with placing the sections in different places and the faculty and so forth, and we'll see what happens there. We're working on that for sure. This slide will be harder to read. but if you want me to give this a better copy of this, I'll be glad to give it to you. This is our in-district comparison. I want to thank we owe this all to Jesse Lane for compiling this for us, but this shows how our in-person in the left column here compared to the virtual in the right column. You'll see some anomalies where the virtual outperformed the in-person, but you have to remember that may have been 3 students.
Right.
It's not like there was an equal number. So when you get up to where we had larger numbers of students, like I'll just spot check. 4th grade math, which was a strength for us, 53% compared to 6%. 4th grade ELA, 43% compared to 31%. I won't endeavor to read all these to you, but if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. But it was pretty pronounced when you look at the whole of the data that our kids that were able, we're not fussing at any of them, but our kids that were able to be with us in person generally fared a lot better. This is the pre-ACT 8-9, the pre-ACT, and then the ACT. You'll remember years ago we used to talk about explore and plan. You may remember that. The ACT did away with those. Explore is an 8th grade test, plan's a 10th grade test. But then I think there was an outcry across the nation of we need something, those were good. And so they did the pre-ACT 8-9 and then the pre-ACT, which is designed more for like sophomores. And so you can see our composite numbers there. We did go back to doing something we did years ago. I appreciate Ms. Wills for being a push behind that this year. Even though the pre-ACT 8-9 is an 8th or 9th grade test, we once again began administering it in the 6th grade just to see where they're at and to have a good measure of what happens between 6th and 8th. Typically, they should be a good 2 points plus higher. So this was the first year of doing that again, so we'll know more in a couple of years. But for right now, there was about a 2-point difference. And then when we gave it in 10th grade, there was another 1-point difference. We did give the 11th graders the pre-ACT this year. That was because of COVID. We didn't get to give it when we intended to. And so they had a 17.1, but then when they took it, you can see the end count there was 117. That's not the whole class. So when they took it back in the spring for junior day, it was a 16.5. We are, I don't want to overstate it and sound like, I still brag on our teachers. They're working exceptionally hard. But as a district and as the high school, we've had meeting after meeting after meeting about this. We are gravely concerned about the ACT composite. Dr. Simcox is, I am, Mr. Henley is, and honestly, K-12 is. We've even had elementaries come on board and say, what can we do to help? And they've been great about that. And I believe we'll see this trend start to reverse. Most certainly COVID had an impact on that, but again, how much, it's hard to say. We are partnering once again with Jumpstart Test Prep to put the seniors who want to retake through a remediation or review rather prior to their retake is this October 5th. And we're expecting to see jumps out of those that opt in to retaking that. Not all of them will opt in because their graduation requirement is just to take it. And so some students, if they're satisfied with their score or they don't need a higher score, they may not choose to retake it. Questions?
I know we're losing teachers to districts that can afford to pay more.
Yes, sir.
How is that affect? I know, I don't care how good they are, a new teacher's not going to perform as well as someone that's been there 3 or 4 years. How's that affecting these numbers?
It's a good question. It's hard to quantify. We've been, and Ms. Wills can chime in here, or anyone else. We've took a beating the last month and a half. We've took a beating this August with attrition, folks departing. I recommended 2 teachers for hire to Dr. Simcox just yesterday, and we have one posted at Doe right now. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Sometimes it's money, a lot of times it's geography. We've got to, and Mr. Adams and I are talking about hopefully implementing there is a curriculum in the state for, Mr. Adams, help me, the name just left me.
Teaching as a profession.
Thank you, teaching as a profession. There is a state-approved curriculum in the CTE department for teaching as a profession. We're looking at adding that course. We've got to get back to, I want to say this carefully, we have wonderful, wonderful teachers that drive across the state line, that drive in from Carter County, that drive in from different places, and thank goodness for them, they're wonderful. But in practical terms, we really need to get back to growing some more of our own teachers. Because even if Carter County doesn't outpay us, if they're driving through Carter County to get here, as soon as they can get a job there, they'll be gone.
I do think it affects the middle school and high school worse than it does us. It's just, we have a larger pool of candidates. You know, his teachers have to be specialized in an area, whereas mine can have a K-5, you know, endorsement, and that just opens up a lot more opportunities. So, but it definitely affects us.
And it's starting to affect you more, because I've noticed your pool has gotten smaller. And whereas we used to maybe struggle to find a math teacher or a Spanish teacher, the last couple of years, this year in particular, it's been a struggle to find any teacher.
How many times have you interviewed a teacher and then they see the salary and they go, well,
That doesn't happen very often. It has happened. It doesn't happen very often. It may be out of kindness on their part or whatever, I don't know. But what does happen, and has happened as recently as last week, is we will hire one, and then they may go to new teacher in service and countywide in service, and then they get a last minute offer from another district and they leave. Like last week.
That's pretty much everything right now, any job.
True.
I mean, every occupation you go and look at, there's vacancies and people coming and going.
Yes, sir.
But I've what you've shown us, when you figured that 2 years ago, we quit school in March and didn't really do anything. And then last year, we were virtual for 2 weeks, and then we had upwards of 400 kids going to virtual school, and half of those kids failing, and we had to bring them back to school. Your numbers don't really surprise me. I think it's just, as a parent, I would be concerned about my child and, how that year and a half's worth of maybe loss affects them long term. So I do appreciate everything you've said as far as what you're doing to remedy that. And, I know we understand that the teachers have done a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
oh yeah.
Because if they hadn't have, then these numbers would probably be worse. And the fact that we're competing with, I don't want to compare us to the state. I want us to all be, above. But when you look statewide and we're comparing, I think that says a lot for our teachers as far as, managing that learning loss. But man, that's a scary thing.
I can tell you,
Yeah.
it hurts teachers. It has hurt their heart to see this.
No, yes,
Because
sir.
they want better. This is somebody's child, and they want better for them.
That's right.
They don't take it lightly.
Thank you for saying that about our teachers. It's very much appreciated. They have worked hard, and last year they had to multitask and do things that they've never done before.
Oh, yeah.
And they did a good job.
Well, let me say this, if there's anything that you see that the board can do, tell us. That can help.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item is the consent agenda.
Yeah, I think,
And if you would look through the consent agenda, if you want to pull something off of there.
I think Angie has something on one of the items, don't you, Angie? The ESSER 3, can we pull that one out?
This is the fourth item on there. We'll pull that off of the consent agenda.
We don't have to pull it off, but I do have a question about the contract with Washington County. Is she here?
She is not.
Okay.
She had to go home.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just had an idea what the students were last year. Any idea? We always do this. It's something we have to do.
We have to do. Yes.
But I was just curious.
I do not know. Angie, do you You're getting ready. Laura, do you care to text Edna to see if you can find that information out?
Yeah, you can tell somebody, like I said, we
I
leave
do
it
know
on there.
that
I
we
just
were
got-
still at around the $58,000 range.
Yeah,
And we had that's half of what we had had in the past. And I also know that Miss Edna keeps a close watch on those students, make sure they're
She makes
attending.
right, and to understand, with this contract with Washington County, Virginia, is for those students that live on that edge of Washington County, Virginia, and it's flow-through money. It comes from the state, it's not from the county, it flows through, but still I keep up with it.
Yeah.
Like no one.
And she always knows exactly how many students and.
Okay, if you can get that number for us.
Yep.
All right, then do we have a motion pulling item 4 off of that? Well, actually, I think it's item 5 off of that, and approving the rest of the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese? Yes. Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right, so we'll go back and go to the item we pulled off. That's approving the fiscal year 2022 elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, or ESSER funds. Ms. Wills?
And I do want to say a thank you to Angie. I don't think anyone understands the heart she puts into everything she does, but she has worked hard on ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and she was here late last night working on ESSER, and something happened and it did not get saved, and she was here bright and early and spent all morning doing it again. So, you know, she has worked diligently to get the ESSER. It's not as easy as just putting numbers in a spreadsheet. So I do want to say thank you for all the hard work she does for this.
All right, so we finally have our ESSER 3 completed. It was for a total amount. Rob, have you got that presentation? There we go. So this first slide is going to show the total amount that we have spent. It was $5,851. $5,851,572.56. And so we are waiting on the approval of funds. We did submit it. Everything is submitted, turned in. There were 5 additional application supplements with this one. That's something that we had not had to do before. All those are done. The big one was the pre-approval that you have to do in order to spend funds for maintenance and facility upgrades. And so we submitted that last week and got approval yesterday that had been approved. So we're really excited about that because I wasn't sure. I thought that they might ask us to come back and do some more work, but they approved it the first try, so we were excited. And so that is a huge hurdle to jump, because once we get approval on the full application, we can move forward and start, you know, the bid process and things like that on some of these items. So that's not going to hold us up. We're really excited about that. But just some of the quick highlights of the things that are in here. We have funded some positions up through 2024. Some of these things were in ESSER 2, so we just had to budget them for 22-23 and 23-24. So the special ed compliance manager, we feel like that is much needed because you just saw our data, and trying to work with those special ed students and making sure that they have the appropriate IEP goals, making sure their IEPs are in order. So we just feel like that's going to be needed for a couple of years until we can kind of get back on track. The same thing with the learning loss coordinator. We did kind of change that title up from virtual learning to learning loss. That's what Jessie is doing currently, but we are so thankful to have her because she's been such a huge asset to help us with that, but put that back in. And then administration of the grant, so that totaled about $293,000. Also the learning loss remediation which is like assistance, teacher stipends for before and after school, summer learning programs, some programs to help remediate some learning loss. We've put New Zealand in there, and then a program called Gallopade. It's $985,588.82. We have put in to try to install fiber connectivity to the field house and the guard shack at the bottom of the hill. And that's one area that doesn't have internet connectivity, and so that was only around $12,000. Improvements to HVAC at Doe was 23, and the same at Rome Creek. And Herbie can help explain a little bit more about that. But I know at Rome Creek, the main thing is they're trying to get it to where that control center that controls the HVAC, we have to call Knoxville if a room is too hot or too cold. And so we're trying to get off of that. Is that correct, Herbie?
Yes, that's what both of those are. It's for a new system at Rome Creek, and then Doe has half of their school on the same, basically the same premise. So we're trying to get those so we have total access.
So actually, it's not the HVAC system, it's the control.
It's a control system.
Okay,
And
that's
actually,
good. We ought to
that's
be able to
basically
control it here.
for programs and thermostats.
Yeah, good.
And then at the high school, that HVAC, do you mind to?
That's
replacing.
That's replacing HVAC throughout the high school facility.
So that was $515, $100.
Are those more efficient?
They're
At least the one at the high school, if you're putting in a new one, is it more energy efficient?
The architect will spec out the most efficient thing that we can put in there that's comparable to what we have. Those are the oldest units we have in the system, and they're in the worst shape.
And then, of course, the biggest majority of this budget is going to that addition at Mountain City Elementary, adding those classrooms and the gym, and that is much needed. Just having that additional space so that we can space students out.
So where are we at on that?
We have to wait for them to approve, and then we can move forward.
So have we got anything from architects, or are we just?
We do. And we put in the pre-approval. We're going to double check and make sure with the auditor that I put in that we would like to work with our architect that we currently work with, because he knows our buildings, and in the long run, that's probably going to save us money. And they did approve that, so, but we're going to double check.
That's
and
Sean
make sure.
Shanks?
Yes. Yes. So that was $4,572,675.
And if they approve that, when are you thinking that project might start? I know that definite plans aren't there, but is that something that you're gonna start next summer, or?
I think we can start this year as soon as we get
As soon as
approval.
we get approval.
We can start as soon as we get approval. One of the concerns that the architect had, everybody else is going to be getting their ESSER funds too. So it'll all be depending on when contractors are available. But they're ready to start as soon as we get approval.
So those are the big highlights. It doesn't look like that would be that much work on that short presentation, but this one was a big one.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you, because I do know on grants, those are very complicated, and even the front of those grants, asking for them is complicated, and working through all the things that they ask, I don't think people really realize, it's not like just getting a checkbook out. There is a lot of work that goes into that, so we really appreciate your efforts.
So what is it, we need to just
Right, we've got to
Approve
come back and
the-
get a motion to approve
the application?
that funds, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Okay, we've got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes.
And I do think Lori has information about Washington County.
11.
Had 11 students, that's $58,000 last year. We had 11 students this year, 11, or 11?
Last year.
Last year?
So, about the same this year.
Okay.
All right, next items, report from our student board member, Matthew Peak.
I'll say hello, everyone. First off, I'm excited to return back to school in a normal schedule. Like, I'm super excited for that. And I hope everyone has a great summer so far. It's been a crazy one. And I hope we continue for normal order for the rest of the year. For the month of August, Johnson County High School, we have the schedule that's followed. Senior kickoff is on August 17th on the Tuesday. And junior kickoff is on the August 24th on the next Tuesday after that. For Mr. Curley, the football schedule will come out as soon as the end of this month or the beginning of September, but he might delay it overall. But that's it for the month of August.
All right, thank you. And we want to welcome Braden Gentry in the back, who's our junior representative.
Hiding back
We
there.
don't often have our junior representatives come and show an interest, so we appreciate that, Braden. First and final reading of the following TSBA required state board new policy updates. Now, this says first and final reading. Dr. Simcox, you want to explain that?
Yes, we can do a first and final reading if it is something that impacts our students or staff immediately. These are 3 policies that state board issued after our July board meeting. So really, we need them in place now because they're attendance policies that's impacting what our students need now. So we can do a first and final reading, and we did contact Ben Torres just to ensure, because I had heard it on your all's policy webinar. And all we have to do is suspend the 2 reading requirements in policy 1.600 on this item, and we can conduct a first and final reading.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
All right, I'm going to try and get this right, so if it's wrong, correct me. But, okay, so only for item number 7 on the agenda, I want to suspend in policy 1.600, which is titled Policy Development and Adoption. That's the first sentence of the second paragraph. It says, and I quote, "The proposed policy or policy amendment shall be considered at the next board meeting with the final vote and second reading," end quote. And attached to that, we need to go ahead and approve, or in this motion, I want to approve the first and final reading of policies 4.206, homebound instruction, 6.200, the attendance, and 6.200.3, the absences policies.
And I can comment on those,
Let's
4.206.
get a second
Oh,
first,
sorry.
and then we'll have discussion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second
No, I
discussion.
can go. Okay, sorry, got ahead of myself. 4.206, again, these are all state board policies, so we do have to adopt them. But this just says we have to have a policy in place regarding students receiving homebound during quarantine of COVID.
Okay.
6.200, it just updated per state law the tiers of the progressive truancy plan. If you remember that big long document, your tier 1, your tier 2 to your tier 3, we had to update that.
You had a comment on that before.
Yes.
Go ahead.
6.200.3 just means we have to add to our attendance, our policy on absences, how we track our attendance, which is through our Skyward system. So we had to add that specifically into that policy.
Okay. I got a question on the attendance.
Okay?
I know that it's got our tier 1, tier 2.
Yes.
Tardies, so many tardies equals an absence. With moving, like we did, start at 7:45, you're tardy at 8:05.
One of the things I have told the teachers, and I know that the principals have done this, is especially this first week to be very lenient with policies because of the traffic. I think, and principals, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I think even at the 7:45 start time, you've been very lenient. If a parent has to drop a child off at Doe and be up on the hill in 15 minutes, I know Leon and Teresa, you're very understanding of
So that
that.
gets into a safety issue, too.
No, it
You know, if
does.
they had to sit in line for 4 or 5 minutes, and the sheriff will agree, from Doe to up on the hill, that's pretty good, that's moving along pretty good
Yeah.
to get up there.
And I know
So-
last year, they worked with those families that
As
had those.
long as we're taking care of those folks, that's
Yes,
fine. I mean,
yeah.
because I know, I hope this ain't gonna stay. It's gonna go back to normal, and we can, won't have to worry about it.
But we will not penalize those families for
Okay.
that at all
All
with
right.
a tardy.
All right, any more discussion? So we have a motion, we have a second. Can we call the roll?
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right, second and final reading of the following TSBA required policy updates, and these are due to recent legislation, and I'm just going to read the title of the policy. First one is security, that updates cybersecurity and our safety plans. Now project planning, which is a new policy that provides regulations on plans for new facilities, which will be important to us if we do this. Access to private facilities, it talks about reasonable accommodations. Instructional standards, which is a new policy that aligns with updated state law. stating that material and content can be included in classroom instruction, summer instructional programs, enrollment in advanced courses, family life education, interscholastic athletics, application and employment, teacher tenure, separation practices for tenured teachers, separation practices for non-tenured teachers, homeschools, alternative education, and physical exams or immunizations. Dr. Simcox, you want to,
Yes,
any comment?
I know at the last board meeting, we were asked to put that on the website, and if anyone had any comments or questions, to please reach out to us. We did post that the next day on the website. I didn't have anyone reach out with questions or comments. But again, these are policies we do have to have due to the recent legislation.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move we approve those on second and final reading.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item is to approve the 2021-2022 annual agenda.
And this is something you all do yearly, just to approve our annual agenda, and it's part of Board of Distinction, correct? Yes.
All right.
Move we approve the annual agenda.
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right, the next item is to approve the management team for the 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Long, Dr. South, Paula Norton, Herbie Adams, Lori Plank, Edna Miller, and Angie Wills. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the management team.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All right, we have a second, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item, approve the DHA committee members for the 21-22 school year. Paula Norton, Herbie Adams, Lori Plank, Dr. South, Dr. Long, Bridget Lewis, and Angie Wills.
Move we approve the DHA committee members.
Got a motion, got a second?
I'll second.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. Next item is discussion of the school bus advertising proposal. Dr. Long.
Yes, several weeks ago, I received an email. We've taken this issue up before, but it's been many years ago at this point. And when I travel around now to area districts and across the state, I see this more and more, and it's advertising on school buses. And so I'm going to turn this over now to Mr. Todd Isaacs. He's come to be with us. He is with District Solutions, the company that is making this proposal to us, and so he's going to explain the proposal and what we stand to gain and how it would work if the board chose to do it. And it would be up to you all. So, Mr. Isaacs, and if you have specific questions about our fleet size, whatever, Mr. Garber's prepared to answer those. So we can talk about that too.
Okay, come on up.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Like your mask, you got a school bus on.
Definitely. Yeah, just thank you so much. Like we said, you've seen it more and more. We've actually been doing this since 2012. And we do work with a lot of your neighbors, Carter County Schools, Washington County Schools, Greene County Schools. So definitely feel free to reach out to them as a reference. We love working with them, and it's been years, and so great to be here now with Johnson County Schools. So I'll just get right into it. But we do this currently for 10 different school districts in Tennessee. And this is something where we take care of this whole program for the school system. There's a lot of work that goes into it, getting the sponsors and artwork created and getting the bus signs created and getting them installed and invoicing and collection and paying the school system monthly. So we just take care of everything for the school system, and check goes out monthly. So I'll just kind of, let's go through that. But there's no investment, there's zero cost. Again, we take care of all the different things, understanding the fleet, and assisted messaging guidelines for advertisers, the approval process. Every new sponsor that we garner would have to be approved, approved first by the school system. Of course, 99.9% of the people we're talking to are good businesses. There's rules and guidelines for who we can even reach out to. No political advertising, nothing, no gambling, no liquor store, all the obvious. But we coordinate the production, installation, removal of the bus signs, partner with local, regional, and national businesses, and the school system gets a check each month with a commission report based on the sponsors that we have, the rate of their bus sign, and then based on your percentage, and it's just each month. We don't charge the 2 summer months when school's not running, so it's a 10-month cycle is how that works. But zero cost to the school district. There's going back to the guidelines, size of the signs can't be larger than 36 by 90. We measure and know what type of sign works on every bus. And again, no political advertising, no, that. Just 2 signs per bus, 1 per side. So 1 on the passenger side, 1 on the driver's side. No more. Just some pictures. You can see it's vinyl is what we use. So it's a really clean process. If the signs can come right off as if it was never even on. So that's great. Just some more examples. And these are just some of the things that we present to the businesses. Generate impressions, write in your community, show that you support the school system. We break it down by the school that the bus is traveling to, so they can actually, if they want to be in a specific part of the county to advertise to, we go to that level of detail for them to be able to do that. So these are just things that we present to the businesses, pretty straightforward there. And projected rate card, I think between $50 and $75 a month per sign is a number that typically seems to work and sustain well. So I think that's a realistic. We kind of offer like an incentive to purchase more. The rate is a little bit better, but it's typically between $50 and $75 a month. That's per side.
It comes back to us, or that's what you charge the company?
That's what we charge the advertiser.
Okay.
So let's say someone were to purchase 3 signs, a real estate company. The rate would be a little bit better, 65, for example. So 65 times 3, I think is 195 maybe, a month. And then a 10-month program, so you multiply that by 10, and that's when you get the final number, which brings to kind of the main slide. I think there's about 25 buses in the fleet,
Yes.
route buses.
Yes.
Great. So if 25, route buses, again, I haven't measured each one, but assuming those are all open, that gives us 50 slots, if you will, 25 times 2. And then just, again, if we were sold them all at 65 and completely sold out, that would bring in $3,250 a month. And then 55% to Johnson County Schools, $1,787.50. And then multiply that by 10, and that's where we get $17,875 a year. Zero cost, and it's a very realistic number. Could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher, but that's, again, at zero cost. So, and, year after year, it really adds up over time. So, and if you get more buses, that number could also increase. But there's no investment, there's no risk of any sort. We do everything and deliver dollars back to your district. These are just, questions. Why are people doing school? It just gives them a chance to raise revenue, and it's pretty straightforward there. But and that's a picture. That's with the Lebanon Special School District. It's fun. We would love to do a big, like a big presentation where that first initial group of sponsors, even though the school year has started, we can absolutely start this. We're in August, assuming we move forward, which would be great. Like October, I was thinking would be a great realistic start to get all the sponsors, and then it'd be great to do a check presentation, maybe have the newspaper come out. That always helps boost get even more people on board if we're not sold out by then. So it's really fun. The signs look great, and be so honored to work with you all. Questions?
Where's the signs installed at? At our garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, assuming all the buses are there. Sometimes we know it's difficult for maybe drivers to come in sometimes, so if need be, sometimes we can drive to where they are. Not a problem, and but hopefully they're all maybe in one place. Makes it easier, but yeah, it'll be installed right at your garage.
You see any issues with that on the bus?
Have you, the other question, I know Carter County, Washington County's got it. Have you heard any of the guys say anything? It was a distraction, they've had an accident, or somebody's
No, I
ridden
haven't heard
somewhere?
any bad reports
Okay.
about it.
Well, that was the only concern I had back when we talked. Well, there's two concerns. The only one that I knew of that would do it maybe would be Subway in 2012. Now we've got 3 or 4 other people, so I don't see a problem.
Tina, you see anything with the money coming directly back to us and not going to a general fund or an audit issue, or?
No, as long as it flows and we have documentation.
Could we predetermine where we use it?
I don't see why you couldn't.
Is there, I know we're not purchasing anything, but it's like we're selling something. Is there any issue with like something akin to a bid process or something?
That's something we'd have to check with the auditor, just to make sure.
Have you all, like when you partner with Carter County, how does that work? Is there, y'all have competitors?
Yeah, we're one of the few crazy people that took a chance and started doing this years ago. I think maybe 1 or 2 maybe that are, but nowhere near the level that we were at, just truthfully there.
How much fluctuation? I mean, in like, it's for a year, so.
Yeah, our
next
contracts
year-
are only 1 year at a time.
Okay.
Very simple, straightforward, that I would send. But they're just for 1 year at a time, so if you were ever not happy or anything, but we have a 100% renewal since we've started. But yeah, it's just, the terms are just one year.
The reason I asked that question, if we could predetermine where it went, it might be an incentive for a bus driver to
That's true.
go back to the drivers. The
Um,
mechanics guys work on it.
That's true. Maybe Dr. Long and I could get with the auditor early next week, maybe discuss with him if there might be any possible issues. He also audits the surrounding counties, so he would be familiar with it,
Yeah.
Okay.
with the revenue stream.
One thing we talked about, we can be open-minded about any possible outcome for the revenue, but we talked about accruing it over time and helping to fund, some of the activity bans and things like what we
Yeah.
talked about too. But we don't stand to lose anything.
Yeah.
I think I had a concern years ago, and I didn't have anything to do with transportation when I first heard about it, about safety. Is it a distraction? But I've seen these on so many buses, and I've never heard a single report. So I think we have a bigger data set now that it's been 8 years, that hasn't become an issue.
Yeah, that was my main concern all those years ago. We got
Yeah.
it.
And nobody knew because it was new.
Right, right.
Do
So-
you, sorry, people that like advertise, or do they sign a contract for a year also? Or is it,
Yeah.
they have to do it for a year?
Yeah, typically we only do annuals. Sometimes we'll make an exception if maybe it's a seasonal thing. But we typically only do annuals, which is 10 months. Again, we don't charge the 2 summer months. So, yep.
So you put this on as a discussion item, but is this something we need to approve, I'm assuming? So it'll have to come back to us. I mean, you've put it on as discussion, so
Well, I guess it's okay, we can change whatever we need.
do we? That's what
I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion to do it,
It's less than $10,000 anyway. Does it have to go to,
that's more than $10,000.
most anytime.
Talking about money, but I
We're
don't
not
think.
spending-
we're not spending
But we're not
anything.
spending
We're not
anything
spending
at all.
No,
anything.
we're doing
Yeah.
But,
revenue.
When you approve.
And we're not looking at a contract that's more than a year.
Yeah, so,
You might could do it, an approval pending the conversation with the auditor.
I mean, I'd like to hear what the auditor says. If, to make mine up, we could do that.
Can we table that and vote for it?
Well, then put them behind the motion.
But he's gonna start in October. Did you say start in October?
yeah, well, he's got work to do before then.
Yeah, but that's, I was already thinking, like, if, we're approved, that would be definitely our realistic, that'd be like our target date. We get started literally tomorrow.
if you don't get started till September, would this be up and running by October?
Maybe just push it back like 1 month. But, being in August now, it gives us the next 4-5 weeks to get all the sponsors on board, get all the artwork created and the signs printed and ready for installation. Definitely think we could do it by October. Yep.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'm thinking if, go ahead and approve this pending, the auditor says it's legal. Not any problem with the auditors.
And I mean, they're still doing, Carter County, and them still doing it, so it must be working. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, see what they said, but, I mean, they're still doing it. And they started in
Long time
12,
ago.
they've been doing it for 8 years. I started noticing it then.
It's a lot of free money.
Because if we put it off a month, we're losing a month's worth of that advertising.
Oh, Did you put that in form of motion? You got that down as a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve District Solutions to do our advertising on our buses pending auditor approval.
A second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Payne?
Yes.
Ms. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Carlton?
Yes. All right, bud.
Thank you.
so much. Great.
Appreciate you.
Look forward to working with y'all, and I'll get with them and.
Yeah, Dr. Long will kind of coordinate for us.
And our auditors are actually in our building right now, so
Oh,
we
okay.
can get with them tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, next item, 5-year plan update. Install a device in every air unit to improve indoor air quality.
Yes, and that is currently being completed.
Can you explain that so that if anybody watches this and they haven't listened to us before, what we're doing?
Yes.
We're installing UV lights in all of our HVAC units and the ductwork to help with disinfectant, help with the cleaning of the coils and different things, which will help with health and also with longevity of our equipment.
We initially were looking at ionization units, and it just, the more and more information we were hearing, people weren't going to that, they were going to the UV lights, which is what we chose to do through ESSER.
So this is going to take care of not only what we're dealing with here, but allergies.
Yes, it should.
Flu,
Allergies, flu,
COVID-19
cold.
allergies.
Well, according to the CDC, flu is gone because everything else is taken over. But allergies, living in the mountains in East Tennessee, you've got allergies. So that's what
They're supposed to help with allergies and viruses, and there's a whole list of things that UV helps. It's got to be the correct UV. I think it's UVC
Okay.
that they're installing, but it's the one that helps with all that.
Okay.
All right, budget update. Tina Lipford.
We have received approval from the state for our 21-22 general purpose budget. Just recently, Mr. Robinson was able to close the former year, and we found that we had $460,000 increase in fund balance, which is a great thing. And then you have a copy in front of you of the reserves for 21-22. And you'll notice some smaller amounts on there. Those are just some funds that were carried over from the past year. Like Ms. Miller had some student assistance funds that were hers. There were still some funds from the Rachel Ray grants. So those smaller ones are just funds that were remaining that we needed to carry over into the new year.
So it's very similar to what we've done in the past.
All right. Doctors.
Yes. Before I do a lot of the items on my report, I do appreciate Wendy coming today just to give you a little bit of COVID protocol update. We did record a video today to try to explain the different scenarios with quarantining and what they mean. It's still trying to upload, so I have it ready to send out to all the faculty and staff, and we'll put it on our Facebook page and to the board. But the video is not quite, I don't know, it's taking its time trying to upload.
Chase is gonna help us work on this to see.
We tried to holler at him before, he wasn't here yet, so hopefully once Chase gets his hands on it, we'll be good. So we will be sending that out to everyone. We will be doing a dashboard, which will be updated every Wednesday instead of every day, but it will just be active student, positive cases with students and staff because the quarantine is coming from the health department, so it's hard to know that daily. But I do want to turn it over to Wendy. She's got some information to share, and I know there's been some questions about, how many active cases do we have right now and that kind of information, so.
Well, it basically just came for some questions because we did that recording today.
Yeah.
And we'll be in here for a while if I go over it again, but it's very confusing, I will say, this year because, last year we all wore masks and no one was vaccinated, so it was pretty easy to determine who was quarantined and who wasn't. This year there's quite a few questions we have to ask, which number one is, do you have a mask on or not? Are you vaccinated or unvaccinated? The 6 foot, so it makes it a little bit more detailed in who we have to quarantine and who we don't. So that's why we did that video today, to try to help parents understand that.
and help you guys understand it and the teachers, because I've had a lot of questions from teachers. And like we put on there, we're still open to questions. I tried to throw out some scenarios on that because the form is very complicated to read. And I still have to go back and question myself on that a couple of times based on what people ask. But so I tried to throw in some scenarios for the teachers if it happened in their classroom to make them understand a little bit more. But I hope the video is clear cut. But and I'll just go ahead and throw out the numbers that we have, because I did say to a couple board members I had a question about that. As of today, we have 6 positive cases and 17 students in quarantine.
Okay, that quarantine lasts 10 days? Well, no.
Approximately 10 days, unless it's a household contact that can't separate. But on that video, we really encouraged them to try to separate.
Yeah, are they tested when they quarantine?
They can test out early if they test at day 6, if they're not symptomatic, and return on day 8. So that shortens it even lower.
Okay, but they have to test.
They have
be
to
able
test.
come back.
Yeah, because this variant is having some unssymptomatic people, and they want you to test. They even want us, we have to test our vaccinated people now, 3 to 4 days in, because we've had some vaccinated faculty that's,
We have that
you know,
too.
Are you doing the testing now?
all the nurses.
Okay,
And we did test.
so we've got tests
We still have kids.
on site.
And if we run out, we have a grant to
Okay.
purchase more.
And one thing, I think there was some confusion about contact tracing. All the contact tracing is done through the health department now?
Wendy and the nurses are having to help them, because we have the seating charts, we know who's around the students. So they are still having to help, but the majority of it's not as much as it was last year as of right now.
What we're doing is we're getting the students out as quickly as possible, calling the health department with those names, and the health department takes it over. They release them from quarantine, give them the letter of return, as far as that part goes. Because we want to get them out so that we're not having, a consistent effect. If somebody was a case, then it just continues to pass on to another person. We want to get them out soon. But the health department needs some help. They don't have those extra help they had last year, and there's just no way they would. We would be waiting 4 to 5 days into a quarantine before they would contact us, and then you've got all that exposure, so we have to get them out. Anything else that y'all can think of about that?
Just hope we can keep the schools going.
Yeah.
Me too.
I do want to share on that note, as far as our connections, our students that decided to enroll in Johnson County Online, which is our virtual academy. We have a total of 62 students who chose to do that. One of the things that I had Edna run was homeschool. How did this impact our homeschool numbers? Last year, we had 60 independent homeschool students. She didn't have church-related information. This year, we have 23. So we have gotten back some of our homeschool kids.
Are they going to the virtual?
Well, of that, 2 came back to Johnson County Online. 18 of those came back to our in-person school. 18 of those have returned to homeschool. So of those 60, 18 stayed. But and then 10 went to a different online. But we did end up getting back 20 of those 60 that come back to that we will receive $80 for. So I wanted to share that information. Board of Distinction, I think they're coming next month. I don't know where Lori went, but they are coming next month to do the evaluation for the Board of Distinction. September the 3rd and 6th is the Labor Day holiday, and there is no school those days. So I think Serena gave you some information on your academies and training, and we do have You Trust Us Drivers Appreciation Day coming up soon. So
That it?
that's all I have.
Mr. Payne?
I want to thank you guys for getting started back up and welcome all the kids back. And let's continue to remember our buddy Gary over here is still sick and not able to make it. So let's hope that he can heal up and get back with us.
I think he's home, though.
Is he home?
I think
Good.
so. I think.
Good.
Not sure.
Reese?
Just like to welcome everybody back, and I hope you have a great year.
Well,
Two things. Seen two retirees, Ms. Billings and Diane Palusic. Didn't realize Diane was going to retire.
She is with us until September? Yeah.
Labor Day,
So
okay.
She's still with us right now, but yeah,
Okay.
I was surprised on that
Yeah.
one too.
And I don't want to, I called our representative coming across the mountain to ask him a question in particular, because I'd heard that they were going in special session to take care of part of what we've been talking about, mask and mandating and that kind of thing. And he said this is the way he said it, when it happens, it'll be in September. So he didn't say it was going to happen outright, but he did send me Speaker Sexton's request, action items for this special session. The governor has called special session, and this is the request that they got to the governor. Parents' rights to make healthcare decisions for their children versus the governor's ability to mandate them. Preserving our freedoms and liberties, stopping unelected bureaucrats and unelected officials from making health decisions involving children and businesses, protecting Tennesseans from COVID-related discrimination, ensuring educators are appropriately compensated for COVID leave, and additional COVID-related issues. That's the agenda, that if they have a special session, that's the agenda. So Scotty said that he was, whenever the governor called, he was ready to go back. So, but that and thank everybody for all their hard work and getting started. I always look forward to start school. I know football season's coming.
It is.
Well, I'd just like to piggyback on that, is that, you know, this is spreading very fast, and if you look at the news, you'll see the number of children who it's affecting, and the number of children in the hospital, and the number of adults in the hospital. So I would encourage everyone to think seriously about their health, and whether they wear masks or not, and whether or not they get vaccinated. But those things are important, and some of the long-term effects that COVID's having on particularly young kids is concerning. And while we've started school and while we kept school going all year last year, we see the learning loss that's occurred. We don't want to get into a situation where we have to close schools. I mean, that would be devastating. So while I realize everybody's making that decision for themselves, hopefully they'll think through that, and we don't mandate anything, but we certainly encourage people to take appropriate precautions. Our online school, while we're talking about that with Pearson, how many, do you have the enrollment figures for that for this year?
I do. She gave me those too. For the K-8 school, enrolled is 1,076
Wow.
students. For the 9-12 enrolled is 490.
And that is revenue that comes, similar to the bus, that's revenue that comes back to us at the end of the year. So that's more than they had last year, isn't it?
Oh, yes. That's a lot more than they had last year.
So that's going to work well. And one other question, Doe driveway, where are we with the Doe driveway?
I've talked to Wagner in a day or two, but the last I heard, he said he would let me know whenever he got it on his schedule so that he could work this evening.
To widen it?
Yes,
How will you do that with school being in session?
very carefully. We'll have to work around everybody. I mean, it'll be, we can run them up the outside if we need to, you know, but we make sure they're not working during drop-offs and pickups.
But we are going to get that accomplished sometime?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, is it as bad as it was?
I think the 7:45 start time complicates it a little bit, but when that's not an issue, it's only about a 5 or 10 minute period that we have some serious congestion there.
So if we could at some point go back to normal
That would-
schedule,
That would alleviate a lot of.
that would help a
pressure.
lot. Okay. What about Rome Creek? Is there, I know the highway's as close there as it is at Doe. Is there a problem there too with the 745? Okay. But if we go back to normal schedule, that alleviates that.
We're
Yeah.
able to start our after-school program leaves on August 23rd, and so a lot of parents take advantage of that time. Drop-off time is at 7 in the morning, and they can stay till 5:15.
Okay.
So when we get that started, that will help also.
Okay.
But right
Okay.
now, it is bad.
Okay. Gay's not here, but.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she is. She's hiding back there. It's always a problem down there, isn't it?
It is, but today was much better.
Okay.
You know, we've got ours divided up by last initial. So the first day, everybody comes in, and then we have to say, now, you can go through to, it's really, you shouldn't be here for 15 minutes, but we'll let you go today. But then today was much better.
Okay.
And then when we start the 21st century, that'll
Right.
improve as well.
And I'm not gonna ignore Laura.
We're doing fine.
All right, anything else? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
We're adjourned.